Hello and welcome to a new video in cooperation with ReiseJung. We're taking a look at days 3 and 4 on board of the Swiss Diamond on our cruise to the Netherlands. Here on the map you can see our route today. We're waking up in the morning in Lemmer, where we arrived in the night after coming from Kampen, and then we're sailing on to Groningen and Leer in Germany. Here we are in Lemmer, as I said. Arrived there in the night, and in the morning we went straight into our 2 coaches that will bring us to the beautiful city of Giethoorn. Giethoorn can be compared, for example, to Venice in Italy or to the Spreewald in Germany. It's a small village without any roads, so you can only access the village by boat or by walking. And that's our destination for the morning. We're heading there as an excursion. Usually excursions there are starting in Kampen, but it's of course also possible from Lemmer. The bus takes about 45 minutes to get there, and it's a quite scenic ride. We're gonna see the polders of the Netherlands, so it's artificial land taken from the sea, and we can see a few lakes and of course a rather flat landscape. From the bus parking lot it's about 5 to 10 minutes to walk until we reach our boat, and with this boat we're now going through the canals of Giethoorn. As I said, there are no roads in Giethoorn. The only way to access the buildings here is by boat or by walking, and of course we're going to take the boat because it's the nicest way to discover this very unique and beautiful city. We're now in the main canal, which you can only sail on in one direction, and it can get very busy, especially in the main season, because it's not only the excursion boats, but you can also privately charter a boat, and you don't even need a license for that, so everybody can charter a boat and go through this small canal. So it can get a bit busy with a lot of traffic, but we were lucky it was not too busy on this day, so we could actually enjoy the cruise through the beautiful canals of Giethoorn. To get back to the starting point we have to sail on a lake to get in the other direction. As I said, the main canal is one way only, so to get to the other direction you have to take the lake. So that's also quite nice, sailing on a lake, and then we take another canal to get back to the main canal and back to the starting point. With this tour, which takes about 1 hour, you get to see almost everything of Giethoorn. A lot of tour operators are including some free time, mainly they include 1 hour, but we decided to not do so because from the starting point of the boat to the city you walk around 20 minutes. So from this 1 hour you're already walking 40 minutes, and then you only have 20 minutes in the city itself, and then you just have enough time to see what you already saw from the boat. So if you're going there on your own and you're thinking about how much time you need, I would say just do the boat tour and leave again, or plan at least 2 hours of extra time, because everything else is quite useless. And if you want to include some extra time, make sure that you're good with walking, because it's quite a lot of walking involved then. But the nicest and best way to discover Giethoorn is for sure with a boat, because then you can see almost all main sites in a very relaxed way, and it is, as you can see, extremely beautiful and for sure 100% worth a visit. We're now back at the starting point, the starting canal, where all those boats are docked, and that means our wonderful boat tour comes to an end now, and all guests were happy and impressed by the beauty of this wonderful village. And here you can see how the boat looks from the inside. And as I said, we didn't include the free time. Instead we are now heading back to Lemmer, because also Lemmer of course is worth a visit and is a must-see on this cruise, and that's why we're now heading back to have lunch on board, and then still enough time to discover the beautiful city of Lemmer. Here we are, but don't worry, all those relators are not from our ship, they are from the next ship of Rembrandt van Rijn. We just went on board for lunch, and then we decided to walk into the city of Lemmer. Takes only 5 to 10 minutes from the docking location, so we're quite centrally located. And Lemmer is a very beautiful city because it has a nice old town with a lot of nice shops, cafes and restaurants, and there's a housing area where every single house has access to water. So also here you can access almost all houses by boat. You can see one of those nice shops where you can buy some gifts. And there's one big canal in the city center, which is also the access to the Prinses Margriet Canal for sailing boats and private yachts. So there's always a lot of traffic on this canal. And another very interesting part about Lemmer is the Lemmer beach, which actually is a proper beach, even with a beach club, but the beach club was closed, so we went back into the city center and found a nice cafe at the canal, and of course we watched some of those impressive and beautiful ships, and then we're heading back to our beautiful impressive ship, the Swiss Diamond. Then it is time to leave. Rembrandt van Rijn was giving us some space for departure, and Antonio Bellucci was already waiting behind us. Of course, Lemmer, as it is a very beautiful city, sees also a lot of cruise traffic. Here we can see the beautiful Antonio Bellucci, also a very interesting ship, which hopefully I will be able to show you in one of my videos in the future. But we are now sailing out in the direction of the IJsselmeer, but we are not crossing it because we are turning almost immediately right again, because we are now heading for the Prinses Margriet Sluis, the Prinses Margriet Lock, to reach the Prinses Margriet Canal. The Prinses Margriet Canal is part of a canal from Lemmer to Groningen, and this part, Prinses Margriet Canal, is 64.5 kilometers long, and later on it continues as the Van Starkenbourgh Canal to Groningen. Here we can see the lock. It's the first lock of our cruise, so of course it's very interesting for our passengers, but we will see a lot more locks during this cruise. But nevertheless, quite interesting. And of course there are also a lot of low bridges here on the Prinses Margriet Canal. Almost all bridges can be opened, but if it's not necessary they keep them closed to not stop traffic, so we have to lower our wheelhouse and the roof on the sun deck, and then we're gonna fit without opening the bridge. And at most bridges the sun deck can remain open, which is a big advantage of the Swiss Diamond here on the Prinses Margriet Canal. Also interesting about the canal is that there are always some lakes that are part of the canal, like the Grote Bekken here in this part, and then when you're on the canal it's actually very narrow, and then you get those impressions like here, where it looks like the ship is sailing on a field, and then you have those low bridges once again, so it is a very interesting sailing area. Of course there are also some other ships, and when the canal is getting quite narrow, that's very interesting to see. It's a rather flat landscape, but you can see a lot of animals, mainly horses and cows, but also a lot of birds, geese, and if you're lucky you can also see rabbits or maybe even a deer, so there are so many animals to see. It is a very beautiful part of the Netherlands. There are not too many cruise ships here on this canal because it's only available for ships up to 110 meters long. And if it's a ship with 3 decks, the sun deck remains closed for the most of the time. So that's the big advantage of our Swiss Diamond. With 2 decks, our sun deck can remain open all the time. Then it was time for yet another fantastic dinner. As I said, the food quality on board was very impressive and we really enjoyed every meal on board. And during dinner we reached a very interesting lock. It's the Ter Hornster Sluis, Lock Ter Hornster. 260 meters long, 60 meters wide, but it doesn't have a function anymore, so both gates are permanently open. So that's also quite unique. Then we are reaching the city of Grau, and there we have a railway bridge, also not opening for us, and we have an aqueduct. That means that we are going with the canal and the ship over a bridge, and below the bridge is, in this case, a highway. So that's also quite typical for the Netherlands. You will see those aqueducts here quite often. And of course, after dinner, we went straight back up to the sun deck. There were almost no passengers because there was a concert of the NOC Jazz Band in the lounge, but we decided to go to the sun deck because this was one of the most beautiful days of the whole cruise, with this wonderful landscape in the beautiful evening light. Of course, for the guests, also in the lounge you can see the landscape and enjoy the music, but we wanted to have the full impression of the landscape and be up on the sun deck. It is extremely beautiful, and I'm now gonna let you enjoy this beautiful landscape for a couple of minutes without commentary. We have now sailed past a national park called the Oude Venen, and now we're reaching the Brug Scheulenburg, which is a swing bridge. It is now opening for us. Of course, we're not going to fit under that very narrow bridge, so it has to swing open for almost all ships. And in the meantime, there were some more horses to see, to watch. Of course, that is so beautiful. So also, if you love animals, this is the perfect area for cruising, because you will always see some animals during your cruise. We've now sailed past the Scheulenburg bridge, and of course there were some more low bridges, were very interesting to see. And we stayed on the sun deck for a couple of hours because it was just so beautiful and absolutely wonderful. And we just left the sun deck when it was getting actually pretty cold, and then it was time to head back into the cabin and call it a day. The next morning, of course, we have to get up early again because another beautiful day is about to start. So that's it for day number 3. And on day number 4, we already docked in Groningen. To my surprise, not at the location that was planned due to a bridge that didn't open, so we had to walk a bit further to the city, but we then made it to our boat tour. And this boat tour will firstly bring us back to our ship. We'll sail past our ship, the beautiful Swiss Diamond, to take some nice pictures, and then we're heading into the city center of Groningen. There's a canal that is going all the way around the city center, so you're gonna see a lot of the city. There is also a regular boat tour with boats like in the Canal Cruise in Amsterdam, but I did this a few times, but it was not that good. So this time we decided to try a different operator, and this operator was offering a boat tour with unlimited included drinks, so that was very nice. But that meant that we had to translate a little bit and give some explanations, so I couldn't film that much, but of course I'm gonna see most important parts of the boat tour. Here we just saw the Groningen Museum, which is an art museum, and as you can see there are also a lot of artworks under the bridge, so you can only see that by doing a boat tour. We've sailed past the main station. Here we can see a lot of interesting artworks, and now we're heading into the city center. We can see some of the beautiful old buildings of Groningen, and then we're getting back to our starting point and we're heading back to our ship, because also today we're only staying the morning here in Groningen. During lunchtime we are leaving, continuing to our next destination, which is Leer in Germany. So now it's time to head back on board, and here we are already leaving Groningen. We are now continuing on the Eems Canal. This canal is not that beautiful, there's not that much to see, so that meant it was now first time for lunch, and then it was time for a break. And shortly before Delfzijl, of course, it was time to come back from the cabin, because now it's getting interesting again. We are reaching the Zeesluis Farmsum, which means Ocean Lock Farmsum. We're not actually going on the ocean, but it looks like we're going on the ocean, because we are now going on the River Ems, at the mouth of the River Ems. So it is already very wide, as you can see here. You can see the ferries to the island of Borkum in the background. And as you can see, this part is also used by ocean ships, and I always find it very interesting when river and ocean ships are meeting. It's always quite impressive to see. What you can also see here is that the water doesn't look so nice. That is because of the tide and of the sediments. So it doesn't mean that it's bad water, it's just because of the tide. Here we can see the catamaran coming from the island of Borkum, and here we can get a quite good impression of how wide the Ems is actually here at this point. Later on we will see the actual River Ems is much smaller, but here in the mouth it is pretty big and impressive. Especially here's also the bay called Dollard, where the Ems is even wider. On the other side we have the city of Emden, where we can see some impressive car carriers, very interesting ships, and we can also see the port entrance of Emden with a lot of other interesting ships. Also the ferries are docking here in the background. We can see the catamaran from the island of Borkum. But we are continuing sailing past Emden, we're heading to our destination, which is the city of Leer. And that means that we have to pass the Ems Barrage, very impressive, a building which we can see here in the background. Built from 1998 until 2002. It's 476 meters long, protecting the area behind it from big storms. And the opening we are going through is 60 meters wide, because on this river also the ships that are being built in the Meyer Werft, the Meyer shipyard in Papenburg, have to go through to reach the open seas. And as you know, Meyer shipyard is building some of the biggest ocean liners in the world. So that's also very impressive to see the way that those ocean liners are taking now from a small river cruise ship. But as you can see now, the river is much smaller. Here we have the next obstacle for those big ocean liners of the Meyer shipyard. It's the Jan Berghaus Bridge. And as we had a big ship behind us, of course not a big ocean ship, but bigger ship than ours, the bridge was opening for us, and we got to see one of the biggest bascule bridges in Europe, together with the Erasmus Bridge in Rotterdam, opening for us. So that of course was also extremely interesting. Shortly after passing this bridge, we're turning to the left into a river called Leda, just 72 kilometers long, but we are only staying for a couple of 100 meters on this river, because then we reach the lock of Leer, and we have to go through this lock to reach the port of Leer, where we will then dock for the night. Here you can see the bridge is already up, so we have enough space to go into the lock. And here we are in the port of Leer. And when you're sailing into Leer, it's also absolutely worth it to go up to the sun deck, because the port is very beautiful, because we are docking right opposite of the old town of Leer, sailing past the port, and then we're gonna see the old town of Leer. Leer is a very beautiful city, absolutely worth a visit, and we're staying there overnight. And here we can see the beautiful city center on the left side, and we are docking at the new cruise terminal at the right side. Okay, terminal is maybe a bit too much, but it is a completely new built docking location for river cruise ships. Early on it was a bit improvised, but now it is a very nice docking location. Also very centrally located, you just have to cross the bridge and then you're in the city center. And of course that was our plan, to go to the city center after dinner. We also had a walking tour, and once the guests started their walking tour, we also decided to head into the city center, but on our own. Just takes 5 minutes and you're in the old town of Leer. But the old town is quite big, so you need a bit of time. Even when the shops are already closed, there's a lot to see, so plan a lot of time. Here we can see the beautiful old town of Leer. Wonderful city, absolutely worth a visit. And of course we're gonna stay overnight, because tomorrow morning we're gonna have another very interesting excursion. We then visited a restaurant called Schöne Aussicht, which means beautiful view, as you can see, absolutely true. And there we enjoyed a nice wine with a nice view, spent a nice evening there, and then it was time to head back to our home, the wonderful Swiss Diamond, which we can see here, beautifully illuminated in the port of Leer. And that is the view from my cabin, so also the view from the ship is fantastic. In the next video we will get to see the Meyer shipyard, so make sure to subscribe, and here you can see when this video will be uploaded and the name of the song. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.